feel like I look like a mom today.
Yeah, it's the shirt. It is that shirt. It's perfect. We're kind of giving like Chessie and Meredith Blake right now.
Yes. Yep.
We really are actually. Oh my God, I kind of love it.
I
Okay,
love
we have to begin now. Let's begin.
it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dream Life Loading Podcast, Season 2, Episode 37. I'm your co-host, Skye.
Co-host Susan, how are you today, Skye?
I am good. We are definitely in the swing of summer. I guess as we're recording this, is actually the first day of summer, so happy summer. But we are getting like stale air summer right now, so it's just so freaking humid. So I'm just embracing that. I mean, even like the 20-minute walk I took this morning, I was like dripping sweat. So I guess that's great. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very motivated this week, just like very like getting all my ducks in a row and just like I don't know. Probably I feel like we're in similar situations except very different situations. Like while you're getting all your ducks in the row to have your child, I'm just getting my ducks in a row to set myself up for success. So we're both setting ourselves up for very different types of success. So
Yeah.
how are you doing? Because honestly, we're pre-recording. By the time this comes out, let's hope you have long since had your child.
If there's not a baby by the time this comes out, there's going to be massive issues. Like there will be like warrants out for my arrest because I will be doing heinous things. Um, I'm good. We are also in the middle of a heat wave. We're supposed to have record high temps ever across both New Hampshire and Maine. So that's fun. You know how like dog years are measured in like a times 7 metric?
Yes.
Pretty sure pregnancy heat should be measured in minimum times 10 metric because you literally want to unzip your skin. Like I never felt more uncomfy. That's
Oh,
okay. It's temporary. And my heart goes out to every single pregnant person that has to be pregnant all summer. Like the thing that gets me through the hardest of the heat is like, there's a margarita within 2 weeks.
yes, you're
Absolutely.
any day. Yep.
So that's really exciting.
Yes. It is exciting. And I mean, it's funny because we're pre-recording and we never do this, but obviously we are pre-recording for that exact reason. So we're hoping that this is all like everybody listening is like, oh, she's good. She's drinking her margarita right now as she's listening back to this. Like we're just manifesting that that's the vibe. Um,
Yeah.
before I need to close this, sorry. I left my window open because of the lovely weather, but I don't want all the literal tractors that drive by to be noise for us. So
Or
moving on.
the Italian.
Yeah, the Italian birds and the tractors. That's like the soundtrack.
Wow.
I feel like this.
So
Nope, you go. You bring us home.
I was gonna say, since I am entering my mom era, it is very easy to have imposter syndrome. Like, even though I've spent the last 9 months growing this whole human, the idea that a real person is literally going to come out of me literally any day
Yep.
is insane and hard to wrap your mind around. So that was just my cute little segue into our topic of the day, which is
I think
imposter syndrome.
great segue. Yes, and I think I mean I can't even remember what we called. Oh, finding your passion was last week, and we kind of unintentionally ended up kind of segueing into imposter syndrome, which we were already going to do an episode on. So it just made sense to kind of have these flow into each other. So if you didn't listen to last week's, probably makes a lot more sense to listen to that first and then come back here because we kind of like set it up, and then today we don't even have to give background. We can just kind of dive in to imposter syndrome. And I think motherhood is a great example of imposter syndrome because obviously there's like the whole aspect of like not being able to like actually rationalize that there's a human inside you, which I completely agree and understand with it. It's like it makes sense and we understand it, but it's still like this is
So
wild. Right. So weird. And I think there's also the other parts of motherhood that like I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but just like I feel like there's going to be moments where you're like, "Oh my God, like I'm not fit to do this." Like I feel like we hear this all the time with new moms that they're like, you don't have any training for this. Like, there's not, like, obviously you can read all the books you want, but like, there's no handbook of like, here's how to be a new parent. So I feel like a lot of new parents go through imposter syndrome of like, we can't do this. And I feel like the number one thing you hear as advice when somebody says that is like, yes, you can. Like, you're going to try and you're going to mess up and it's all going to be perfect and your kid's going to turn out just fine. And I feel like that's the perfect advice to use with imposter syndrome as a whole, is just try, just go for it and try.
Absolutely. And I think, when was the first time you heard about imposter syndrome? Because I feel like for me, it wasn't until maybe after college.
Yeah, I feel like whether or not it's a newer phrase, it's definitely newer for us. I don't know if like older generations, if it's been around and like our generation kind of caught up to it, like because it's definitely not something we talk about in like middle school. Like, oh my God, I have imposter syndrome. So I guess it kind of makes sense that you become familiar with the term when you hit points where like you start to experience imposter syndrome. Like even in college, I guess you could have happened if you like had like, I don't know. So, but yeah, I think it was probably around the same time for me.
You know what? I think I figured out when I first heard it, and I think it was from that, what's that stupid little game with the little guys, and they're like sus and imposters. You know, it's a
Oh, Among Us.
Among Us. That is when, because one of them is an imposter. I feel like that is around the time that that term was coined in my head for self-improvement.
Okay, interesting. I can't think of like, I feel like I heard it on social media and I probably, which honestly, I think this is where social media is terrible because you get introduced to things that you probably never thought about before and then it's in your head and like, which this is a great example. As kids, as middle schoolers, whatever, we just do things because we want to, or somebody tells us to, or it's what we should be doing. We just go out and do it. We're like, okay. And then we get older and we get online and we start hearing that we should be self-conscious about our different random body parts and like it's, I think imposter syndrome boils down to comparison and a lack of confidence. So that all happens with puberty and with getting older and all of that, which you don't have as a kid. So I feel like trying to go back to the way you are as a kid, like you want to do something, just go ahead and do it. Like, who cares if you might not be the most qualified or like if you, whatever. Kids don't care. They just go out and do it. They jump. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's what we need to go back to, is just jump.
Absolutely. So I wrote down my definition for imposter syndrome is feeling unworthy or incompetent despite success.
Yes.
Because it's not like imposter syndrome is when you are qualified or you are successful in something, but you're telling yourself you're not.
Yep. Yes. I hadn't written down an exact definition, but I completely agree with yours. I had written down something, your brain will tell you no, prove it wrong. And that's basically taking your definition and like putting action to it. Because the whole, I think imposter syndrome is specifically when it's internal. Like if somebody else tells you no, I feel like for most of us, that's motivation to prove them wrong. So think about it the same way. Your brain is telling you no. Like there is nothing factually based that you aren't actually qualified to do something. It's your head and it's your anxiety creating these scenarios. So listen to your head and prove it wrong. Like take the same motivation as if your friend or your enemy or whoever says like, you can't do that. And you're like, watch me. Yes, I will. Do it to yourself. Literally go and tell yourself like, watch me. I'll do this.
Absolutely. I was surprised. Did you know that imposter syndrome affects 82% of the population,
Oh my God.
whether they realize it or not? They
That's
are doubting.
terrible.
That's insane.
Wow.
And it leads to, like, the impact of imposter syndrome leads to burnout, anxiety, and it can impair your job performance or
Oh,
whatever
for
you're.
sure. For sure. I mean, I've seen it firsthand with myself, with others, like even I think theater, actually maybe theater, whether or not I knew the term, I feel like theater might have been one of the first times that I experienced imposter syndrome because given a lead role, I spent a lot of time being like, no, like this should go to somebody else. Like, I'm not as good as a singer as her. Like, she's been in the department longer. Like, she should get it. Like, creating all these scenarios in my head, but but I was given the role. So I think that's where, when it's career based, which theater wasn't a career, but hobby, career, whatever it is, like, I think you have to think factually, like fact-based evidence. So if you start to spiral, like, we'll use the theater example, like, should have been given to her, should have been given to her. It actually doesn't matter because you've been given this role. So think about it with a career too. Like, we literally have talked about this with me as just friends, not even on the podcast necessarily, but like, I'm not qualified for this new job role, like blah, blah, blah. And like, don't say that, say what you actually know, which is, I do have the experience, I do have the skills. And I think if you start going through the facts, there's less room for your head to make up scenarios, because you're switching out like should be scenarios with this is what is actually happening.
One of the biggest things I have learned in my new job, especially in situations when I'm in like a meeting with our CEO and I feel way in over my head, is to leverage and utilize your resources. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. And I think that that's probably the first place that imposter syndrome tries to sneak in, because it's like, I don't know the answer, I'm not qualified, I shouldn't be doing this. And you kind of panic and spiral. But if you have an outlet or a resource or anything that you can pull out and just say, I don't know the answer right now, but I can do X, Y, and Z to find it out.
Yeah.
That covers you. That covers all your bases. And 9 times out of 10, that's what they want to hear. They don't want just your gut instinct on something. Like, yes, that's valid for a certain percentage of your role or duty or whatever you're doing. But being able to back it up with outside sources or outside things is monumental. And I think the theater example is perfect because it's a passion. And I think that that is also where imposter syndrome can sneak in. Like, one of my friends right now is starting a photography business. And the biggest thing when we talk about it, because I'm like, she's crushing it. Like, her photography is beautiful. Her editing, yes, her editing is wonderful. And that's one of the things that she's always like, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this. I'm like, dude, you're doing it. Like, you're doing it right now.
You're already doing it.
No one is doubting you but you. So you just have to own it and keep on going, because you're building your own experience and your own opportunity.
Yes. Oh my God. There's so many things I want to say to that. You wouldn't be where you were if you wouldn't be where you are if you weren't qualified to be there. Literally, photography example is perfect. Like, she's already doing it. She would not, like, think about all the things that it took you to get to where you are now, whether that was you going viral on TikTok, which then led you to really diving into social media, which then led you to starting a small business, which then led you to getting a job. And so, like, all these different things, you would not be where you were if you weren't qualified to be there, because there's not people. I mean, there are so few examples where people just fall into brand new careers without any experience or without any past knowledge of them. And if it happens, like, they're probably qualified in very different ways, or maybe they're not at all. But we're thinking for the general public here. Nothing happens in life without something before it leading you to this next step. Like, you are qualified to be there just for the fact that you are there. And then don't wait until you're confident to show up until you're confident.
Yes,
and I think
that's huge.
That's number one, because the confidence piece is definitely what hits me the most with imposter syndrome. And I was even talking to my dad about this, and he was like, you absolutely can do this. And he was like, but you don't need to hear it from dear old dad. Like, you need to hear it from yourself. It's like, you're right. Because as much as I would love for somebody else to tell me that I'm good at this, it actually doesn't make a difference unless I believe it.
One of the biggest things that I have found helps me with my imposter syndrome when I feel it sneak in is identifying it and then tracking and measuring my own success.
Yes.
And this has been huge.
The fact.
When I started my job, the very first thing they trained me on was text messages. And I took that over. Like, that whole process is now mine. And I was so insecure about it because I was like, I don't have any experience. Like, I knew how to write a text message for marketing, but outside that, I didn't know, like, I didn't have a strategy for this. And now that is my favorite part of my job. And we make incredible money from that one thing. And it's from trial and error, but then also tracking our revenue. Like I analyze our monthly reports every single month and then I tweak and I see how I can do it better. But that's also one of those things that it's like, this is factual revenue that I'm bringing in that I'm like, and that also gives you such a confidence boost. Like you feel so much better when you're like, we're in the green this month, you know, and then you continue to set goals and do all of the things. But
You're
just
giving
leaning into the
yourself.
future.
Like you're giving yourself
Exactly.
the opportunity to like show the other part of your brain, like, actually, you're wrong, and here's why, which is so much easier
And
than
then,
saying like, no, I don't want to listen to you.
and then you can use that to leverage new opportunities or raises or anything you want to advocate for yourself.
Yep.
So definitely always be documenting what you're doing. Every quarter, I go through and I write down a list of everything that I've either achieved or implemented in that quarter. And then I track revenue, like how much it is brought in. Like you can be doing this for yourself in any position that you're in. Obviously, salaried is a little different, but still, you can negotiate whatever you want and just
And
bust open those doors.
this is great for non-career related things too. Like there are always ways, and I think like you're tracking revenue as a way to prove to yourself that you are like worthy to be in the position that you were in because it's a career position. But if we're talking about like a passion or motherhood or any of these other things, like track your like I can't think of the phrase right now, but like reward yourself. Like don't forget to celebrate your little wins and big wins. That's what I was trying to find. Because if you continue to celebrate those, like even little things, like we do this all the time. It's like, I did this today, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And it happens, we both do it because yes, we want to support each other and we want to know what's going on in each other's lives. But I think even just the act of saying it out loud, like, I did this today and I'm so proud of myself, you get the reciprocation from your friends, which obviously always feels good. But then going down the line, if you have those moments of imposter syndrome, you can think back to the things you already said out loud and believed and be like, no, wait, that's not my truth. Like, I already said this, like, I have to trust what I said in the moment. Like, I am worthy, I am proud of myself. And like, that's the power of positive affirmations. Like saying those out loud is such a big help with just like toning down the imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. And I think like any little thing that you achieve too, or big thing, like it has taken me over a year to be like, oh, this is my house. Like this is my literal home. Like we worked so hard for it, but it didn't feel like ours. And
Yeah.
it felt so like when you live in a rental, it's like technically you don't know how long you can be there because your landlord could be like, hey, this isn't working, or
Yeah.
they sell or whatever. And that insecurity is something that like it's just crazy. So it's like even the things that you have worked really hard for and you have had for a long time, like those things can also cause imposter syndrome
Yep.
when you're not even expecting it.
Yep. I think that is so valid. Something that helps, and we've kind of been talking about it without actually saying it, is reframing your thoughts. So I thought it'd be fun to do like a little exercise. I have 5 different like imposter syndrome phrases, and then we're gonna reframe them.
Okay.
So the first one is I don't belong here.
I definitely belong here.
Right.
I deserve to be here.
Yes, I deserve to be here. Like, and or like, I don't belong here. I belong everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter where I am. I belong. If I'm choosing to be in the room, I belong here. Love that. Um, this one's very similar. My opinion doesn't matter. My opinion matters. Like,
Yeah, right.
it seems so silly. And if you're listening, you're probably like, well, obviously I know, like, because you're just taking the opposite, basically. But it's so important to spend the time, like, it's not silly because people actually have these thoughts. So we have to take the time to reframe it. And I think especially if we take the time to reframe it when we're not having the thoughts, then when they creep up, we're like, wait, I already know how to make this go away. And it
And
seems dumb, but it works.
if you're talking to someone who doesn't think your opinion matters, you're talking to the wrong person.
Yes. Yep. And you know what? The confidence of maybe even saying or just believing and knowing that your opinion does matter is going to shut that person down. Like people that are trying to put you down, get very closed off by somebody who shows confidence, even if you have no confidence on the inside. If someone comes up to you and is like, oh, like, you're on this project, like, I didn't realize you were working on this, like, oh, like, what qualifies you to be here? And it's like, well, actually, like, I am very qualified to be here along with my team. Like, you don't even have to give details to people like this, but if you even just clap back and you're like, actually, I do deserve to be here, what are they going to say to that? Like, there's nothing to say, and all you're doing is solidifying what you already know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
We don't have to do the rest of them because I think we get the point. But I do like the idea of reframing. I think it's an easy, which I mean, we're just going back to the fact-based evidence. Like, I think imposter syndrome is creating thoughts in your mind that aren't true. So to reframe it, you replace it with what is true. And I think in some situations, creating more like specific facts might make sense. Like in your example of like tracking revenue, it's like, if I feel like I shouldn't be here, I made X amount of money for this company in the past 2 weeks. Like, clearly I have some skill and deserve to be here. And I think writing them down too. I know we've talked about that in past episodes, but in the example of like celebrating your wins and stuff, it would be so cute to have like a notes app on your phone of just like your wins, things you're proud of, successes, and then maybe you do it like year for year. And so you can like look back and be like, oh my God, look at all the things I did in 2021, or, like, just feel like that would be a really nice way to like hold yourself accountable for remembering that, like, yeah, I am doing enough, and probably more than enough.
Yeah, like a junk journal, but for your success.
Cute. Oh my God, that would be so fun. And you like screenshot and like print out like your sales or like whatever your project is. Like if it is a musical, yeah, I know that, like,
Not a new product.
yeah, like you print like your cast list from your musical, or like if you bought yourself something because you made X amount, and like the receipt from that.
I would say the receipt for going out by yourself.
Yes. Oh, I don't have a receipt.
You have a picture though. You can print it out.
Yeah, that's true. I should. I was gonna go somewhere with, I think we have to talk about comparison if we're gonna talk about imposter syndrome. Because I feel like comparison, while like a lack of confidence is a big problem with imposter syndrome, like too much comparison also kind of leads to imposter syndrome.
It's so easy to look at something and automatically assume someone's successful.
Yep.
I use my TikTok as a really good example of this. I think if I were to look at my TikTok, not in where I am now, but where my TikTok stands right now, if I were to look at it 2 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, she has over 200,000 followers. She's probably making mad money. I made 18 cents off of my TikTok this year. So let's just put that in perspective. Yeah, this year, I haven't been doing much with it. But I think it's so easy to just look at a number, like a followers number, and just automatically assume like that she's doing so much better than me. Like, I'm doing 18 cents better than the average person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that got taxed too. So I probably took home like 6. But it's just to put it in context, like you can't just assume, like you can't assume. And you can't compare yourself, because arguably I was more successful on my personal TikTok when I had 30,000 followers and was doing brand deals all the time and that sort of thing, versus what I am now, where I'm just kind of posting whatever I want. Like it's just one of those things that you can't assume, and comparing is like not okay, because you're never going to have the full story.
Yep. When I still get it. But it was more when I first moved here, is like, obviously, like, oh my God, you're moving to Italy. Like, you're living the dream. Like every single day, your life is a movie. Like you're on vacation. I was going to say holiday. Like I've become way too
European queen. Holiday.
Like, and like I see the comments and it doesn't upset me because I get it. And I would feel the same way if I wasn't here. And it's not that I'm not extremely happy, and it's not that we don't have days where sometimes it does feel like a movie, but one, you can create that wherever you are. And I'm not saying like Well, it's amazing wherever you live. Like, I understand the privilege of the fact that I live in Italy, but I even think the fact that I live in, like, you say, oh my God, you're moving to Italy, and people automatically think like beach, cobblestones. You think like Italy, Italy, and then I live in German Italy, which again, beautiful, love it here, but it is that comparison thing. Like, most people probably don't know that like most people speak German here and the food is schnitzel and French fries, which again, totally fine, but it is that comparison thing where you don't know the full story, but we create these stories in our heads where it's like, oh my God, Susan's making so much money on TikTok and I wish I could do that. And Skye lives in Italy and she doesn't have to work and she just thrives and reads her book outside all day. And it's like, you don't know the story. And we do the same thing. Like, I guarantee there are people and situations that I'm like, oh man, I wish that were me. I wish, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, unless you, I mean, I can't even say it because you never know the full story unless you are actually living that life, which cannot happen unless it's you. Like, even with a best friend, like, I cannot know the full story of your life because it's not my life.
Right.
And it's just not worth it. Like, what a waste of energy.
And with every good thing that someone else has, there's something that contrasts that.
Yeah.
Nobody's life is perfect. I mean, look at the Kardashians are a great example. They have more money than they will ever be able to spend. And everyone, I think people envy that and they have jealousy over it. But their entire lives are plastered in front of all of us. And
Yep.
all of us have an opinion because you heard me say Kardashians and you either rolled your eyes and were like, I hate them,
Yep.
or you're like, oh my God, I love them. So, like, no matter what, you have an opinion on them. Like, imagine having billions of people have an opinion on you and your family.
And
Like,
look,
that's
I mean, we've
insane.
seen, especially in the past couple of years, Kendall Jenner has severe anxiety, and Chloe doesn't leave her house because her anxiety is so bad. Like, Chloe, like, I would not want Chloe's life. Even we're seeing obviously a fabricated, made up version of it, but the way she speaks online in complete fear of leaving her home is very sad. And it's very interesting to say that I feel bad for a Kardashian, but I genuinely feel bad for a Kardashian because she is clearly unwell. And it's a sad life. And it's hard because the grass is always greener and we think it is. And my dad and I were actually talking about this the other day too, of like people feeling like, oh my God, moving to Europe is going to fix all my problems. Or then the flip side is, oh my God, the American dream. And it's like, there are amazing things anywhere, everywhere, if you're looking for them. But if you're looking for the negative parts, that's what you're going to find. So with imposter syndrome is looking for the negative parts. So once again, reframe, flip it, take the negative. There's always a positive of a negative.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like that's a perfect place to wrap up, too.
Love it. I didn't come up with a favorite.
Well, I'll do my favorite first and then you
Okay.
can do it.
Okay.
So my favorite of the week is raspberry dark chocolate. This is a win-win situation for me because Chris hates it, so I don't have to worry about him scarfing it down. And I get it's called Ghirardelli. It's like the one that, yeah, it comes like this and it comes in like a cute gold foil. And I snap two of those off and I put it back in the fridge. I keep it in the fridge, but I snap two off, and that is my nighttime treat. And I'm actually very excited about this because I've always liked raspberry and blueberry covered chocolate, but it was sparked from our brain chemicals
Yes.
episode, dark chocolate. And then that's my, like, I love a sweet treat at night, but dairy doesn't really like me. And especially with my gallbladder issues, I'm like, I probably shouldn't be sticking ice cream in my system before I go to bed because I'm going to wake up violently ill. So that has been my sweet treat at night. And it's like, it's low calorie, it hits the spot. And I'm just excited to have that. Just now is nice, but also like postpartum when I'm trying to get back into like a fitness routine and all of that stuff. I'm very excited to have a healthier option that's good for my brain.
Yes. Oh my God. You just reminded me. I have a bar of chocolate in the fridge that has like bits of raspberry and like something else in it. And it's so good. So good. Yes, you make me want to go get a Kono, like all these sweet treats. But I came up with a favorite while you were talking. I was like, there's so many different things I can go with this. But I have to talk about Whitney because you completely influenced me to try out, you've been telling me to try Whitney's app for months, and then being on my own this week, I was like, perfect time, we'll try the free trial. And I love it. I finally got the app to work on my watch, which is really life-changing, which they really should make it clearer because the app will automatically start a workout on your watch. But if you're like us, where you just go to the gym and start your workout, then it ruins it. So just be warned if you're going to try out the Alive app. But I love it. Like you said, it's so aesthetic. I really enjoy the workouts. They're well paced. There's too much rest time, but maybe that's just that I rush everything. But
Have you tried like fast forwarding?
I
Did you
do.
find
Yeah, no, I totally do. And like, I'll skip some of the rest sometimes or whatever, but it is just like 3 minutes between a set. That feels like so long, but it is a great app. What is your quote of the week?
if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough.
That's so perfect with imposter syndrome too.
I chose it.
Yep. I don't really have a quote. I guess I did nothing correctly today, but I'm going to say that my quote is that I'm in my fearless era. And I think I had said this in like the spring, or there was some time where I was like, I'm in my fearless era, but I feel like I was saying it more of like
Last year.
it was last year. So it was like, oh, it was probably right when I got engaged. So it was like the princess love story aspect. That's what I was leaning into. Oh, because I was feeling a sense of freedom, like all of that. Okay, so that makes sense. And maybe I was, but now I feel like I'm really in my fearless era and I'm taking it seriously. And it's day one of the challenge as we record this. And we are just going into the next 100 days with self-improvement and no fear.
Yes, I love it. Imagine if I have my baby tonight and then I could say at the end of the challenge that I have 100-day-old.
Oh my God, cute.
Maybe 99-day-old.
Yes. Well, it should be tomorrow, so she'll be right on time.
So I don't know if you could tell my demeanor about halfway through this episode has shifted. I feel so nauseous. Like I could throw up right now. Sorry if you don't like that, but I literally am like, I don't know if it's because it's getting hot in here
saw
or
your
if it's
face. I was like in the middle of talking and I saw your face. I was like, oh my God, like what's about to happen? I was like, is she about to give
I'm not in pain, but I definitely feel like I could yak at any moment.
No. Well, good. I guess good.
But yeah, hopefully that's like everything. This morning I had a contraction. I didn't realize it was a contraction at first, and I was like, Chris, feel this, because like her whole body was like morphing out of my side. And he was like, your stomach's like rock hard. And I was like, yeah, everywhere. And he's like, no, like everywhere is like rock hard. And that's when I was like, oh, I think I'm having contractions. Like that must be what that is.
Wow.
But yeah, so I think just all my organs are slow and hopefully she's good. But I can breathe because she's not in my ribs anymore. So that's exciting.
Thank God for that.
She loves some air, some hot, humid air. It's like drinking the friggin' air right now.
No, it is. It's so thick. And I'm like, I really would like a Kono, but I'm not walking to get one. Like it's not safe out there.
It is not. And you would get it and it's just gonna melt.
Yes.
Like it's
no
hot for even ice cream, which is terrible.
All right.
You guys know the yeah. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, leave a review wherever you are listening, and we will hopefully see you next week with a baby involved in this.
Thank you for listening.